I have so many questions. I know everyone does, so I'm going to ask a few, and then we're going to open it up and try to get to everyone. Before we get to the sort of big questions, I want to start by asking about Rachel Ray and Big Pussy, and how that scene came together.
Well, we always knew, let me just say, from the beginning, this was always the ending. So that allowed us certain kind of, I'll get to it later, but from the beginning, we always knew it was going to be this. And we always wanted there to be a time jump. And basically, we wanted it to feel as if their show had taken off. So we wanted to kind of have the audience experience a real-time segment on one of those shows. And we were just lucky enough that Rachel Ray said yes. And it was actually a pretty unbelievable thing to witness, because we gave her all of the pointers about what it was that she needed to talk about, the things she needed to hit. They put it on the teleprompter, and we used her crew. And we just filmed a scene from her show, and then we had to go back and trick her into doing it again, because she's like, I did it, that was great. And then I'm like, oh, we need a couple more stuff. She's like, I'm done. And it was like, well, maybe let's just try this little piece, and then we kind of, but she was unbelievable, and it's like, the fact is I think that that's such an unbelievable performance, you know, on her part, because she really just treated everything that was happening as if it was 100% real, and on her show, down to Josie's wipes, which we invented the night before. So,
has she seen the show?
She has seen, I think she has seen this segment, but I don't know if she's seen the show. But her camera person told me that she's very busy.
So you mentioned you knew from the start that this is how the series was going to end.
Yes.
You were going to arrive at this end point. Could you sort of walk us through how you reverse engineered that? I suppose, just talk to us about how you came up with this ending, how you arrived at it.
Well, originally it was he floats away, but very slowly. And then, practically speaking, we're like, oh, wouldn't it be more exciting if it was reverse gravity? And so then it was literally like you're falling off a cliff upwards. And then that became the thing to try and chase. And it's interesting because it's like, okay, I know that there's a lot of questions about why it happened, I imagine. Why him? And we have reasons, you know, but it is very early in the kind of gestation of all this. So the way that I'd like to leave it about that is like if you have a drawer, for example, and there was no handle on the drawer, how would you open it? You know, would you tip it forward so that the drawer falls out? Would you use a knife to get into the crack and open it? Maybe you'll take some tape and stick it to the front and then pull it out that way. You know, you'd come up with a lot of different ways to open that drawer. And what you'd find inside is the same information. But the way that you got that information was your own. If you put a handle on the drawer, you just open it right up and you find your information. So you lose a little bit of that process and that kind of searching, which I think is important, you know, for this. And I do think that there is something strange in that you will be watching something and asking, why did this happen? Why did this thing that is clearly supernatural, why did this happen? How could it have happened? It had to have been this, it had to have been that, you know? You're trying to find reasons for it. So it's not too dissimilar to what it would be like if you were actually there, you know? Because that was something that was important to us, which is when you're faced with something like that, how would you respond? You know, you see all of these people who talk about like seeing aliens or whatnot, and they talk about it in the same way that probably is not too dissimilar when Dougie's talking to the cop, you know? But there is this element of conviction, and you have to find reason, and you need to understand it. And I think that in the process to trying to understand it, you understand more, so.
So it was always your intention to sort of insert this surrealist or supernatural or inexplicable, in material terms, element.
It always seemed like the right ending. It just seemed right. It didn't, it only helped us that when we were shooting this happened. So we just were working with what we had.
So those actors at the end, they were
just watching. Yeah, they were like, I can't even believe what's going on right here. So
I think that this sort of juxtaposition of the surrealism and the very sort of immediate emotional realism of how everyone experiences this moment, it contributes both to the comedy and to the horror, kind of this scenario. And the entire episode kind of walks that line between being terrifying and being hilarious. And it comes down to the choreography of the way you stage Asher on the ceiling of the bedroom and the way, they get him out of the house. And so I'm just curious if you could talk about that process, about staging it. That's
a great question, because I think when we originally pitched it to Showtime, they were like, oh, that's funny, Like they thought it was just a joke. And then we're like, no, we're serious, and we're going to take this very seriously. So I think it wasn't until they saw the dailies and I think it was specifically Asher screaming for his life, Dougie, Dougie, it literally is like, I think that we took it seriously. We tried to treat it as if the characters were experiencing this as it happened. And part of that was, well, what would we do in that instance? Your brain wouldn't immediately go to, oh, that's something supernatural. No, of course not. That's just not how we're wired. I don't think, how many of you here believe in supernatural things or events? There you go. It's like there's like 5 people, so it's like you'd be very prepared. But if you aren't, you try to figure out and problem solve. And so by approaching, I think there's something interesting about by approaching something like this from realism, it does do something interesting to your viewing, because it is funny, because they're taking natural and kind of realistic steps in the face of something so insane. But that's kind of how you stay grounded. But yeah, and just what I will say is I'm willing to kind of be the masked magician and like tell you how we did it too, if that's of any interest. But hold on, let me see if I can FaceTime Nathan. Let's see if he'll answer. This will be embarrassing. Okay, and then you all can tell him how you felt. I know I think he just won't do it out of spite to make. Yeah, no, he's not. Wow, he's not going to do it. This is sad.
He's missing out.
Yeah, he's missing out big time. No, he is doing something else. I don't think he's able to do it. But I'm going to text him a mean message. Maybe he'll call me back. We'll see. And another thing, let's get a hand for Katie Byron, who is the production designer and constructed this whole thing. It was really kind of crazy. And I think when I said that because we knew this was going to happen from the beginning, there were a lot of things that we could do to prepare ourselves. One was their house had to have a massive tree in front of it. It had to. So every location we would look at from the beginning had to have a 300-foot tree. That was just, and that immediately just changed. Already was very difficult. And that was one thing. And then we also knew that what was going to happen in the bedroom was going to happen. So we purposely shot all of those scenes on a stage from the beginning. So from episode 1 on, every bedroom scene you see is done on a stage, because we knew that we'd have to reconstruct and build this second upside-down set as well. And the thing that was the most amazing, and it's why we cut in from the bathroom, is the towels. The upside-down towels were a sight for anything. I don't know. They were they literally were perfect. And so we also had these. It was almost like see no strings kind of thing when he goes under and he touches him, or they put the net over the back, or when he's on the ceiling and he drops the vacuum. we specifically added in all these things to try and make it almost impossible to see what's happening and to just see it as real.
When he and Emma are holding each other in the
Oh my
air.
God, yeah. That was crazy. And it really was a lot of practical. Almost everything was like, you're doing it, and it was the first thing is like we both got up in the harness in the set just to see what was physically possible, because I think the other thing that I think was important was the style of the show doesn't change just because there's a crazy stunt, and that's what was the hardest thing to achieve, was how do you get this stuff without changing camera angles, and that's not easy. So it became like a real kind of dance to figure out how to really show it, but not act like we're showing it, if that makes sense. So
I think there's also kind of a physical comedy element to, especially, Whitney being pregnant and kind of on the floor, and it's like
the way she moves through the house. You're so right.
So I'm curious about your choice to sort of extend this incident to fill the episode almost, other than sort of the prelude at the beginning with Rachel Ray and the Shabbat. Could you talk about sort of the mechanics of the episode and of the decision to make the entire episode this crisis of like what's happening?
Yes. I guess we deliberately wanted to withhold it for as long as we possibly could, so that as you're watching the final, you're just like, I guess everything's okay. They got their show on TV, they're doing their thing, and it's not okay, but it's weird. But like that's how they would get through their lives, if nothing like this happened. So it was really just kind of seeing the line that we could go and how the chairs start creaking at the right moment, and then that happens. And then really, again, it was just about the real time element of it was very important, because like you said, that does a lot to the comedy and the emotions of it. And they're taking it seriously. So we have to as an audience, And
sort of a...
But when Emma runs out, when she feels the air on her back and hits that tenor of pure fear, it's like, this only works if both her and Asher are afraid. And I think that they're very scared in this. And it really does, when she does that, it's at times frightening and hilarious, because she wriggles out so quickly.
And then I think the ending is the very end, with sort of Dougie having a breakdown and Whitney having just given birth and having this kind of beatific daze over her. Was that sort of always where you knew the characters would end up?
Yes, I could speak to both of those. It was. We always knew that Whitney would have this kind, because she's always very. You can't. It's hard to see what she's thinking, And I think in that moment, at first, you're like, "Oh my God, is she really sad? Is she crying?" And then it turns into this kind of laugh, and then a tear of almost happiness, and it's just such a complicated moment for her. And then it was always going to go to Dougie, and having his realization. But the thing that was hard was, we wrote into the script, Dougie's totally fine, and then bursts into tears. It's like, I'm like, yeah, I could do that. So, and it was hard. That was definitely hard. And I did one time as hysterical, and I guess the other actor, oh, there's Dave. Did he answered you? Oh, that's why. Hey, here we go. Yeah, I was going to say you answered Dave. Hey, everybody, here's Nathan. You can speak.
Hi, everyone. How did you like the show? Nice.
There we go.
Hey, I'm so sorry I couldn't be there with you, but I really am relaxed right now in my home, so maybe it's a good thing.
I don't know where the speaker is exactly on the phone, so hopefully you guys can hear it. But okay, I guess that's it. I'll see you, Nathan.
Okay, great. Great stuff, everyone.
All right. I was upset that you answered Dave and not me, but Dave...
I called back you and you didn't answer.
Okay.
I missed you.
See?
And then I called you.
No, I'm just kidding. Amazing. All right, Nathan.
Turn me to them for a second. I want to say one more thing. Can I say one more thing?
Of course.
Okay. Thanks for supporting this show and sticking with it and coming to these things. It's so great, and I just appreciate it. And Benny and I love you guys so much. So thank you for doing this. It's really great.
Amazing. There we go. Great stuff. All right, I'll talk to you later.
Don't go on too long, okay?
We're going. Nathan. Thank you, Dave. Yeah, I forgot.
No, I think that's a perfect segue.
Was it a perfect segue?
Yeah, why don't we
Okay.
open it up to the audience? I know we have some mics and mic runners who will bring the mics to you. So I'm going to call on people, and if I call on you, keep your hand up, and the mic will be with you shortly. I see one hand very high right here.
Yes.
In the white shirt.
So the moment that Dougie has that realization at the end, from your perspective, what's going through his mind? Is he having this sort of like, holy shit, like the curse is real? Like, what have I done? What's going through his head?
I think he feels very responsible for a lot of things, and it hits him like a ton of bricks that I guess everybody he comes into contact with that he may have some positive relationship with, and this is their fate. And so he blames himself, because he kind of wanted something to happen. And it's really just like a whole mess of him apologizing to everybody that he's ever done anything wrong to, because what happened was just, it really does affect him in such a deep, sad way. And it's almost incomprehensible. Like, I don't even know what I remember. I don't even remember what I was saying. I think I was like, I'm sorry for everything I've ever done, I think is what I said. And it was just like this, it was really sad. It took me a long time to recover from that. But it's funny, Nathan, he told this story the other time where I was like, okay, it's going to be a little intense. I'm going to need some time to get there. And then I'll kind of like, I'll touch my nose and wipe my nose when I'm ready. And so we waited for like 20 minutes. And it was really hard because it was this fire truck. There was so much going on. It was really hard to get there. And eventually, like, you feel it, and then I touched my nose, and then we did it, and he's like, yeah, so the other actor, he kind of jumped in a little too early, and we should do it again. I'm like, and he's like, can you do it again? And I was just like, yes, let's go. It was just kind of an intense thing. But yeah, I think it's just overwhelming guilt for what he doesn't know. And I think what's interesting about Dougie is he's maybe one of the only characters who actually shows that kind of true sadness. I don't know what that does to how you feel about him. I think maybe it makes you like him a little bit more. I don't know because he can't help but hide it. And in that moment, he's trying, and that's why it comes out so much more intense. But
Here's one to me. Here.
So I was wondering, with this episode or as the series as a whole, during the editing or post-production process, if anything in particular sticks out to you that was unexpected, that came specifically through post that you didn't anticipate during production, if any moments like that stick out to you?
I think what we realized was we could do something a lot more, like, even though the pacing was that way, I think we deliberately paced it down while we were shooting, and then we paced it up, if you could believe that, in the edit. And so I think the two things together is once we realized, okay, you can understand it with this amount, we were able to really tune in that kind of tone. And then also just the music was all post. You know, John Medeski, who did one of the most incredible scores, he never scored, that's not true. He scored to picture twice. One was this final sequence, and then I think another time was it was the oven, when they broke the oven. That was it. But other than that, he scored to emotion. So we just had this library of tracks that we had at our disposal that whatever you put into the edit significantly changed how you watched the show. So it really was a lot of time going through and trying to find the right one that matched whatever it was supposed to be saying, because it wasn't always clear what the music is saying. And I think that it was just important to kind of find it and not have it done. It felt more, I guess, organic to have it just placed based on what we were feeling, as opposed to like kind of a predetermined thing. But like we got a folder of 100 tracks that were just like labeled positive ruminations, you know? And it's amazing. I think there's going to be more releases with it, but it was an amazing kind of library of stuff. And then there's like a whole folder of 100 stings because we were trying to find the right note for the title card. So
I see a hand right there. Yep. Just keep your hand up.
I was wondering if you had any insight on that moment when Whitney stares directly down the lens when she's on the table.
I actually just noticed that too. So I don't have much insight there. But I think she's just searching, you know? And I think it's most likely she doesn't know where the camera is, but I think she just happens to kind of find it. And then you notice how she doesn't lock eyes with it because she doesn't see it. So she's just kind of like, she catches it for a second. But the guy in Abshir's house, he saw it. Yeah.
Hand right here.
Was there a specific choice to keep Whitney insulated from the fact that Asher is gone? Or did it just kind of happen with the natural pacing of the episode? Because it's very clear that Whitney has insulated herself from a lot of the things that are happening to her, and then kind of ironically, she is insulated from the fact that Asher is gone. Is there a specific choice?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing is when she enters the hospital, all she wants is everybody around her to help her. And at the end, she doesn't want anybody except her child. So something happened to her in that experience that she didn't even know was going to happen. And I think that's kind of what that's about. But I think it was also just the idea that like it's hard in this day and age with cell phones and stuff to actually have people separate and not know what's happening to one another. So in that sense, it was kind of like she really wouldn't be able to know. You know, because she's in the middle of this whole procedure. There's nobody going in and talking to her in that moment. So she'll probably find out very soon after, but yeah.
I'm curious, did you always conceive the scene to take place simultaneously with her?
Yes. It was always going to be this kind of back and forth where we're checking in on each person and how they're moving forward in it. But, and then again, yeah, it was always going to be this kind of big motion of stuff. And that's why that music had to be a little bit more hands-on. But
I see a hand back in the upper, yep, with the hood on.
Very descriptive. It's good.
I was wondering, what relation does the floating camera at the very end have with the kind of candid recording throughout all 10 episodes? Because I feel like those two things are connected in a very weird way.
Well, they're very different. You know, I think that's the important thing there is it's the first time it does that. And it's the only time it does that. And why? we have our reasons. I don't. It's like it's almost like something is free in that moment, so it made sense. I don't know what it is, but something kind of, there was a release of some kind, and it's like it was like destabilized, you know?
I see a hand right here in the front center. Yep, keep it up.
I feel like I'm walking on landmines up here. Gentle pass.
Thank you. I had a question more geared towards the family that they gave the house to, because I feel like the beginning of the series, to me, the whole interpretation of the curse was very with like their daughters, but now seeing the ending, and we feel like the curse is now more related to Dougie with Nathan, but I was just kind of wondering more on the context of that family, like if they were more of like a precursor to what the curse actually was with like the chicken and everything, like if that's all like connected to how this ended, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I think it's connected in the sense that there are certain things that happen with how the characters reacted to that family, you know, that the feelings that were evoked there. And I think that it's funny because like somebody has a feeling there, but then when something else is actually happening, that thought isn't even in your head, you know? So I think that that's what's important with those two things, is that when this is happening, they're just trying to problem solve and figure it out. But in that instance, it's clear as day, you know? I don't know how.
Cumulative effect.
Yeah.
Let's see, there's one in the sort of dead center of the room. Yep.
So across all 10 episodes, like what stood out to you the most where, I don't know, a couple of years from now, you're gonna like still go back to those scenes? Are there any ones that you think really resonated either with you? I'm curious if you think Nathan or Emma have scenes that just like really got under your skin in a way. I'm curious, like, yeah, what's gonna stand out?
Well, I guess just this whole ending bit was such an insane thing to do and try and figure out. Maso Bishop is here. He's the cinematographer. And just trying to figure out how to shoot this was crazy because when we were upside down, we were still shooting through windows. And so we still had to have the camera placement in the same quote unquote placement as it was on the right side upset. So there was a lot of weird like geometry that we had to do. And it was just like, it was a crazy process of figuring that out. So just that alone is something I'll never kind of forget. But the other thing I think that was just really funny was the sweater scene, where the way that played out as we were doing it became so much more than what it was. And it was still the same as it was in the script, but it got so much longer, and the way that the sweater comes off so fast the first time was really, and Nathan's reaction. There's just a lot in that scene that I think, and then the argument afterwards was a big deal because that was the first time Nathan really went there, you know, and I think he was maybe a little bit uncomfortable going that crazy, but he hits it, you know, and it's really special in that way, and it's also funny and sad. I don't know. That one? I don't know. Maybe 6 or 7, something like that. But we did we broke it up into different pieces because we had to, based on like where it was, and that was actually a stunt we were very scared of because to pull on the head was very scary, and we actually did a lot of previews of that on our own to see how it would rip and if it would actually rip your hair out too. I don't know, but
did you have to specially engineer the sweater?
we did have to we had multiples of the sweaters. There were little tears here and there, and it was also just a lot about physical acting on how to make it look like that, which was again also fun to try and figure out, but it was at one point it definitely was just not coming off, and we had to adjust it because her neck was just like. But
let's see. I see a hand right, sort of on. Do you see where I'm pointing? The
right there in the gray.
Yeah, keep it up. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. How you both doing?
Very, very well.
Good, good. Yeah. I was just kind of curious in working with Maso for you and Nathan and the Zellner brothers. What was kind of the process for some of these really voyeuristic, super complex shots where either it's the blocking or just the setup of the camera itself, like through doorways or through windows and through cars, like it's just very complex, and I'm wondering what was the process for setting some of those up?
Well, we would do the scene and then figure out the hardest way to shoot it is really it. Like if it was too close, it was too close, and we would try and find further parts away. At one point, we were traveling around with a window that we could just put in front of the camera, and we'd dirty it up. I was always running up to windows and like, because I'm greasy, so I'd like rub my face and just like right in front of the camera lens, just put all this grease in front of the, because sometimes you couldn't feel the glass. That was the problem. So it was like, so everybody would just look over and they'd see me going like this, and they knew the shot was getting great, you know? But yeah, it was basically just trying to figure out the furthest we could go, and then you'd think that maybe it would make it easier, you know, nobody knows where the camera is or anything like that, but we found that it actually made it more, you had to be very precise about where you ended up and where you said your lines, because there was very little leeway. You know, if you stood 1 foot to the left, you'd be completely out of the shot. But then it was also like we were okay with not seeing things, you know? And I think that was something that everybody kind of had to get used to. But things weren't going to be seen. People's backs would be to the camera, and you'd get weird shots from up high that would be your other shot, and that's all you had. So it really was like, it was an exercise in that, in a lot of ways. So, the car stuff was actually done on a stage, which I think is pretty crazy. But that was like that was an intense build on its own with 2 cars and lights, and it was crazy. But that one was a lot, again, like a lot of making it more difficult to kind of give you that feeling that we were following them or something.
I see one right here in yep, right there.
I was wondering if there's a lesson to the story, or if the lesson is just you can't escape your fate, as in like your whole world could get turned upside down. If that's the lesson, you just can't escape the universe and what it brings. Like, however good or bad you are, you'll just end up in the same place.
Yeah, that is a valid theory. I could also say that you would, if you ever made it back from that, you would, just by human nature, question everything you did. Is this what I did to deserve this? You know, what did I do to deserve this? Or is it even bad? You know, is it a bad thing? Because like when Asher's going up, he sees something. You know, could be the lack of oxygen. Who knows? But there is this idea that like these things. But again, like that just even the thought that this is possible, you know, is something that I think is crazy. But we wanted to try and make that seem like it is possible. And I guess, yeah, you can't escape your fate, but you can change yourself and you can change things. And I think you can also ask the questions about just, yeah, what does it mean to be yourself, you know, and that kind of thing. But
I see one right here in the black shirt. Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, the end, at least to me, kind of felt like becoming a parent is like this cosmic moment, and kind of juxtaposed with like HGTV being kind of this look at a family through a very, I don't know, intrusive lens. Could you talk a little more about the HGTV connection and becoming a family?
Yeah, I think HGTV in particular puts a lot of weight on family, and I think that it's funny because I remembered watching Flip or Flop, which is one of the good ones. I guess if when you watch the early seasons, like the first or second season, they have no kids, and you kind of get a little bit of an idea of their relationship and what they are and who they are, but then all of a sudden one season they have kids, like they're just there, and the scenes changed, everything changed. The beginning of one episode was literally they were sitting at a table, and I think like Tarek brings over like all the breakfast, and he's like, how about everybody do last night? Everybody have a good night? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, oh, we got a lot of work to do today, gotta tell you. And then she's like, yeah, I was wondering, like, what are we gonna do with that house over on 44 Pine Street? And he's like, that's a good question. Like, let's finish up our meal here, and then let's all go check it out. And you realize, oh, this is all a ploy just to set up the fact that they're gonna go and look at this house and flip it. And yet here they have their kids eating and like in it, they're feeding them, it's all this stuff. And same thing with Fixer Upper. I was watching a behind the scenes thing there, and they looked like a totally normal, like, confession to camera, and then they showed the behind the scenes, and she was flanked by like 5 children just outside of the frame. And I thought, oh my God, that must be so weird for those kids, And it is just, it's strange what it says, because I think that deep down all these shows want to be about like the American dream, and I think that fits into that. And they need that in there a lot of the time. So, and then when it is, the people who are the hosts can't help but put that in. That's part of it. And I think that's probably why they're probably so excited about season 2 of Green Queen, is because they're gonna have a little heir to the throne, But
I think we can take one more in here, and then we're gonna have to move out into the lobby.
which I'm okay with.
I see a hand right here.
Oh, he's
high.
waving.
Yep.
That was a good move, sir.
He's got a big question.
Tip for everybody: if you want to get called on, high hand raise,
Sit
and
forward.
then when you think, even if you're not called, do the move. I'm going to use that.
Good, you may. I want to get back. You opened this up with this metaphor about the drawer, the process of us as the viewers figuring it out, kind of we all have to, making it a little difficult for us, not just giving us an easy answer. So with that in mind, I'd like you to address a little bit more about the camera as character. It's clear, very, very clear, that this was a strong choice, that in our experience, just watching episode 9, was it last night? We had this long conversation afterwards about camera as character, and how it helped develop this sense of horror, this mundane horror that comes from these simple things like trauma, inadequacies, and all these things. So that is, you've made something very mundane, very horrifying, culminating in this final episode of absolute craziness. So I would love it if you would talk a little bit more about camera as character here.
Yeah, I think just from the beginning, it was always like, okay, how can we show the real of the world? Because there was always going to be the show that they make, and that was going to feel a very specific way. It's 4K, like hyper crisp and clear image, and how to justify and show you the real world, in that sense. And part of the distinction was, okay, if we can feel where the cameras are and we can see them, like, then that adds to that layer of, okay, I shouldn't be here watching this, and yet I am, and I'm feeling it. And I do think that there is this element of us and the town watching this stuff happen, and watching these people and trying to understand these people. So we're almost in it together as we're seeing them and they don't know that we're seeing them, and they think that they're hiding certain things, but deep down, it's like we're always going to catch it, you know? And I think that it really was just this idea to just put you in a similar position as like if you were in that town watching these people, you know, and their private moments. So, but it definitely was a conscious decision, you know, to try and get you to feel those things in a greater way. And okay, great. And yeah, and it definitely is like, I don't know. There was this. We definitely had a lot. Never mind. So.
Well, I think we should keep the conversation going outside.
Yes.
Thank you all for being with us, and thank you, Benny.
I am so. This is like. Wait, quickly. I think we have two other people. We have Dave McCary here. And then we have my brother, Josh, was here, or he was. Oh, there he is. But really, everybody, this has been like 10 weeks or whatever. It's been an insane thing. I really can't thank you more from the bottom of my heart for being here and being as excited and doing this together. I'll never forget it, and hopefully we can do it again. So, thank you.